Today we're going to learn how to factor trinomials that are of the form x squared plus bx plus c. We are going to learn something called the hangman method for factoring. We have a couple of trinomials. Again, these trinomials, they've got three terms in them, and they're quadratic because the first term has a square. So the biggest degree is a second. It's a second degree polynomial, which means we call it a quadratic. So we're going to learn how to factor these. What you're first going to do, here's the first step. Go ahead and draw something that looks like a hangman, like this. Okay. We're going to put the first and third term on the top of the hangman. So x squared plus 12 is going to go on the top of your hangman. And then the 7x, the middle term, is going to come right down here. Okay, so that's the first step, is setting up your hangman. You're going to put the first and third term on top, the middle term on the bottom. And then what you're going to do is you're going to break down the x squared and the 12. We're going to break down these two items. X squared, in order to get x squared, we have to multiply x and x. So vertically, we're going to put the factors. We just want two of them. Now, I will tell you, you may have to do trial and error on this because 12, because we can only use two factors, okay? So for 12, there's several options on factors that you can use for 12. Now, I will tell you, we want two factors that multiply to get to 12, but that also add to the 7 down here that's at the bottom. So if we kind of think about factors of 12, let's just write them down. Factors of 12, we have 2 times 6. 2 and 6 are not going to give us 7. We have 3 and 4. 3 and 4 is going to go ahead and give us 7. So those are the ones we want. We want positive 3 and positive 4 to be those factors. And the way we can check and make sure we're correct is we can multiply across. So x times 3 is 3x. X times 4 is 4x. And if we look down, these do add to 7x. So our factors of this trinomial, the way we get the factors is we circle. Once we get this checked and we know it's right, we circle diagonally. X plus 3 is a factor, and x plus 4 is a factor. And here's how you write your answer. X plus 4, and then x plus 3. And see what happens, what we've done, is if we multiplied these two binomials using the FOIL method, if we multiplied the x times the x and the 3, and the 4 times the x and the 3, then we will end up with this trinomial. So we're undoing our multiplication. Last unit we learned how to multiply two binomials. Now we're going to learn how to undo it. We're going to learn what are those two binomials that multiply to get this trinomial. So that's the goal of this whole thing. So on letter B, let's go ahead and set up our hangman. We have g squared plus 10 on top, and then we have 7g on the bottom. So we need to break down those factors. G squared, it takes g times g to get to g squared. Now again, we want to think about the factors of 10 that might help us. So we have, 2 and 5, and those actually are the ones that will give us that 7g. So we're going to put in 2, 5, and then just to confirm, we're going to multiply across. We get 2g, 5g. That does give us 7g. So then our factors are g plus 2 and g plus 5. We have to circle diagonally. So we have g plus 2 and g plus 5, and those are the factors for that trinomial. So if we multiplied both of these binomials, we would end up with this trinomial. Okay. Now we're going to add in just a little something here. This time we're going to look at some trinomials that have a minus sign in them. Okay. We set it up exactly the same way. We draw our hangman. Okay. K squared plus 25 goes on top. This time, though, we have a negative 10k, all right? So we kind of need to think about, if we break down k, it brings down into k and k. If we think about things that multiply to get 25, we want them to add to get to a negative 10. So let's think about some factors of 25 that might work, like 5 and 5. 5 and 5 do add to get positive 10, but they don't add to get negative 10. So this is where we have to kind of think of some other factors. If I take -5 and -5, if I multiply those two numbers, I'm going to get positive 25, but then if I add them up, I'm going to get -10. So those are the ones we actually want to use, -5 and -5. So then our factors are k minus 5 and k minus 5. Because we get -5k, -5k. That does add to -10k, so those are definitely our factors. So we write it out, k minus 5, k minus 5. And those are the factors. Okay, looking at letter B. Okay, x squared plus 18, and then minus 11x. So the first and third go on top, the middle goes on the bottom. X squared breaks down into x and x. Then we have to think about factors of 18. 18, there's quite a few options for us to think about. So we're just going to write down several options. We have 6 and 3. We have, let's see, you can't see that on the video here. Okay, we have 6 and 3. We have 2 and 9. So those are some factors that give you 18. But if you look at the middle number in the bottom, -11, we want them to be negative. 2 and 9 give us 11, but we don't want the positives, we want the negatives. So what we want is -2 and -9, because then we get -2x, -9x. That does in fact add to -11x. So our factors are x minus 2 and x minus 9. X minus 2 and x minus 9. Those are the factors of that one. So that's what happens when you have the middle term negative. Your two numbers that multiply are going to have to both be negative. Okay, let's look at these last problems now. All right, so this time the last term might be negative. So this is going to be kind of a mixture. Let's draw our hangman. We have m squared minus 27, and then we have positive 6m down here. So we're going to break down m squared. That'll give you m and m. If you think about 27, that breaks down into 9 and 3. Okay, so it breaks down into 9 and 3. Now, if we want a negative 27, let's think about what that means. It means that we probably want one of these to be positive, one of them to be negative, because we want them to multiply to get to a negative 27. So we could have the 9 negative and the 3 positive, or we could have the 9 positive and the 3 negative. Either way will work. But let's think about what our end goal is. Our end goal is to add them to get to 6m. Well, if you look at these options, 9 and -3 seem to work out to where we would get, this looks like it adds to 6. So we have 9 and -3. That gives us 9m and -3m. That does give us positive 6m. So our factors are m plus 9 and m minus 3. So we're going to write out our factors, m plus 9 and m minus 3. All right, so looking at letter B, let's try this one. Some of you may want to pause the video and see if you can do this one on your own, and then come back and check your answer. All right, so we have p squared minus 3p minus 40. So we have p squared minus 40 on top, negative 3p on the bottom. So we're going to break down p squared into p and p. And then negative 40. So there's a lot of options. This is where you really might just want to start trying stuff and see if it works. So 40 we could do, this is where pencil comes in handy, we could do 10 and 4, but then we have to make one of them negative because they have to multiply to get to a negative 40. So if we make the 10 negative, well, that doesn't really work because we get negative 6. So then you can erase. So see what I'm saying? You can go through and kind of try different things. That's going to give us a positive 6, so that won't work. So we probably want to try all new factors. The ones that I do know work are 8 and 5. So 8 times 5 does give you 40. And then you have to think about which one you want negative. Well, you want these to multiply to get negative, so either the 8 or the 5 have to be negative, and they have to add to a negative 3p. So that means we want the 8 to be negative and the 5 to be positive, because then we're going to get negative 8p and positive 5p, which does in fact add to give us negative 3p. So our factors are p minus 8 and p plus 5. So those are our factors for that one. Okay. Oh, and that's the end of those notes. Okay, so that is how you factor trinomials. There are several ways to do it, but the main thing you've got to think about is you have to look at two numbers. You've got to look at this number and you've got to look at this number down here. These two numbers got to multiply to get to the top number, and then these two numbers have to add to get to the middle number down here. So that is how you factor the basic trinomials that are in the form x squared plus bx plus c. Thank you for listening.